Thank you very much, Kimberly. Probably a lot of people don't know me, but I'm one of the 3 partners of Yellow Search today in Local Search. We're happy to be here. And I have the privilege of announcing Jill Holtz. She has been an analyst and consultant in various industries, and then she decided to start her own company, My Kids Time. It's an Irish-based company, and let me see what I can say about this. She has more than 500,000 followers on Facebook, and this blogging site is telling stories. And what we have heard a lot this morning was about scalable products that you can sell, and Facebook ads and LinkedIn advertising wasn't scalable a couple of years ago. Now it is, and now we're going to look at stories. How can the stories of the future may be scalable, but this time it isn't. It's a manual process, and it's an art, and we're going to hear from it by Jill Holtz. Thank you very much.
So get used to the clicker. Hi guys, so I've come from the west of Ireland in Galway. So I just wanted to ask a quick question before I got going. So for those of you who work with small to medium businesses, maybe you have platforms bringing them digital, how many of you include any kind of content, brand, messaging within the service offering to those SMBs? Nobody? So I'm going to talk today about content and community on a vertical that we have where we work with SMBs and actually large brands as well. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about My Kids Time, how we got started. And as I go through a couple of stories which I want to share with you, I'm really going to talk about content and the synergy between content and social media for community and how effective it can be in driving business results. And hopefully some tips for success as we go. So if you're working with those small to medium businesses, I would argue that content builds trust and the trust builds revenue. That was what the previous speaker, Simon, was talking about. Trust is so important now online. And content is one way that you can build trust for your brand. So very appropriately for Sinda, we actually started as a local search listings directory in Galway. So it was kids' activities and classes. And over time, we started to add and grow and evolve and became effectively a blog that parents visit from all around the world. So we've grown this kind of global brand, which is an interesting story in itself. And how we've done that is through very targeted content in our vertical and social media. So there you can see on the left our old website, which used to be very listings focused. And then on the right, the listings are still there, but it's only about 5% of our traffic now. The rest of the traffic comes from what parents in our vertical want to do is read content. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a second. So the other big change since we started was there wasn't really social media. Well, it was in its infancy in 2007. People were like, what is this thing? Who's on there? We thought Facebook was a student platform because I had come out of Harvard, was it? But then we realized that actually parents are starting to use social media. They're starting to use it to connect with their friends and families. And there's an opportunity to use social media to bring people to our website. So as of at the moment, we have over 600,000 fans and followers, but it's not just about the numbers. They really engage with our content and it drives results for our business because we have 2 key metrics for our social activity. Can we get them to visit our website? So that's page views. And can we get them to sign up to mailing list? So the other big change that's happened in the last 9 years is the move completely away from desktop towards mobile. So 80% of our traffic is mobile now between, I think that's 70% smartphone and about 10% tablet, which leaves 20% only at desktop. So we've won a lot of awards. These are Irish awards. That's where we get to enter because we're an Irish-based company. And we started off winning awards for our social media presence and having built such a large community. But more recently, we're winning awards for our content. And that's important for our business as a small business ourselves. Why? A couple of things. First of all, it gives credibility to our customers. So who are our customers? Predominantly advertising and sponsorship, and we work with two different kinds of customers, the big brands who place through the media agencies, but also small to medium businesses who want to reach parents. And so awards for our business are about credibility, but they're also about benchmarking ourselves. So how are we doing against our peers? And it was really interesting as well when Simon was talking about brand trust. So we get externally measured every year by, I don't know how many of you are familiar with User Needs. They're based out of Copenhagen. They do website usability surveys, like a little pop-up, how easy is it to navigate, that kind of thing. But one of the things for us that they ask is, how much do you trust this website? So how do you trust this brand? So it's a really effective way of measuring brand trust. So I'm now going to tell you a little story about a piece of content that has had over 600,000 views. And why I think this is interesting is it illustrates how you can take a vertical like parenting and use content and social media to drive. In our case, as I mentioned, one of our metrics is bringing people to our website because we can monetize that. So what happened was we posted this little poem on Facebook, and we noticed that it got a really good response. It was just a text poem. There was no image with it. So what we did was we thought, people like that. Let's create a blog post now. And I should preface here that on our website, we have social share plugins. So if you come to read a piece of content, it's very easy for people to share that. We then reshared that blog post out on Facebook, and the results have been phenomenal. We've had 600,000 views on that piece of content and over 80,000 social shares, and that was just last year, and it's still going strong. So why did that work? I'm going to dissect this a little bit for you. So here's the poem. It's a very sentimental poem. It's about the last time you do things for your child. So it's a very emotional thing. But we also picked a very appealing image, that slightly retro thing that reminds people of when they were a child as well. And you can see at the top there we have our social sharing buttons. Again, that's what's really driven this. So in our experience, 5 things that work really well in a vertical, and I think that doesn't really matter if it's parenting or any other vertical. First of all, something that engages emotions. So I heard a really interesting podcast the other day by, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's a woman called Marta who has written one of the most downloaded slide shares ever called What the F is Social Media. So she became famous because she wrote this slide share about social media. But she was saying that nowadays it's not just about having content and good content, but actually that you make people experience an emotion as they read it. So clearly our last time poem hit that button. But there are some other things that work really well in our verticals. So are you solving a problem for them? Okay. So what is the pain point that is common with your customers, your target audience, and can we help them solve that problem? Fear of missing out is very effective as well. So how can I be a better parent? Or how can I be a better business owner? Or how can I cut hair better? Or anything. You can apply that to a vertical. So things that they think, I want to know how I can be better. How am I going to miss out if I don't read this? If it adds value or saves time, so you may think, well, actually, these are 2 things, but saving time is giving value. So how, when I'm reading this content, am I giving value to the reader? And another thing that always works is amusing. People like laughing. We all like a joke, so amusing things as well. But what you do is you make those related to your vertical. So you're using your social media and your content to drive your business objectives. That's ultimately why you're on social. And there are a few things that I wanted to kind of dissect here. So first of all, your targeted content. Now, it's easy in a vertical because you're going, okay, this is the vertical, this is what they look like. But even if you aren't in a vertical, you have your target customer personas or avatars. You should have those profiles. So you should be able to write content that is targeted at different personas as well. Listening and monitoring on social media is totally vital. If you're not checking in on your channels a few times a day, realistically now, people expect a really quick response. Making that social sharing really easy. So why do people like Facebook so much and go on Facebook all the time is because it's easy to share content and see other people's content. So they make that really easy. So wherever your content sits, you need to make that easy for them as well. So making the decision about where the content sits is really important. And I'll talk about that in a minute because I believe the website should be the engine for that. Resharing, so if something's worked and had resonance once, then you absolutely keep pushing that piece of content out again. Always remembering, what is the core objective? Why did we write this piece of content? Was it to bring people to the website? Was it to get emails for a lead magnet? What is the core objective? And keeping that always in mind. Opportunities for repurposing. So if something's done well, how can we turn this into other types of content? Can we put it on a slide share? Can we make an infographic? Once you have created a core piece of good content, then you absolutely should repurpose where possible. It's just makes sense, especially for a small to medium business where you don't have a lot of resource and time. Repurposing is really great. And if you've seen that something has resonated, use that to drive more content. So if you've written an article that, say you're selling hairdressing supplies and you said, here's where to get the best 10 hairdressing supplies, and that goes down really well with your target readers, then write more of those, update it, do a top 5, again, repurpose, okay? So why I was talking about the blog as the engine is because what you do when you use your content and you put it on your blog, the first thing you do, obviously, is your SEO stuff. I was talking to Mick or Mike from Latitude who developed a SEO tool, which sounds really interesting. But basically, you're looking and you're going to see what are people searching on around this topic so that I can build in that into my content. And also, if you're writing things seasonally, you're making sure you're writing it 6 months in advance so the search engines will pick you up. So many small to medium businesses that we work with and that talk to when they're doing advertising with Micah's Time say, oh, but you know, I don't know how to write. And you say, well, yeah, but you can tell a story. So that's a starting point. Maybe you need some help with the polishing. Maybe you need to pull in a copywriter for a few hours every month to help refine that. But at the end of the day, what it's about is telling stories about your business, telling stories about your products in a way that engages and is social rather than sells. Crowdsourcing is a very easy way of getting content. So again, you go out to your community, you say to them, we want to do a feature on hair supplies, to use that example. What ones have you found to be the best? You can then turn that into 10 hair supply items recommended by hairdressers. So, you know, again, you have a very effective thing. And when people have been involved in that crowdsourcing, then they're more likely to share it as well. I'm going to give some tips in a minute on curating because not every small business can manage to write a lot of content. But, I mean, the world is awash with content, so it's a case of kind of finding the good stuff and sharing that. And ask your customers, or look at what your customers are asking you. Q&A, you know, turn that into content. If your customers are asking you questions, that's because they have pain points, and that becomes very effective content to reshare then. And then you're pushing that out from your blog. So for Micah's Time, we have 2 types of content. We have our B2C content for parents, and we push that out on these channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And then for our businesses that we work with, we write business content about marketing to parents, and that gets pushed out on what we call our business social channels. Now, I would like to just say this. If anybody is going to do content marketing, you have to be doing the best you can. You have to write really well. That content has to be as good as you can possibly make it. What do I mean by that now online? It's got to be well structured. It's got to be scannable on a mobile. People are reading content on mobiles. It's got to have a good title. The visual you pick matters, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. So Joe Pulizzi, who's the founder of the Content Marketing Institute, he basically says, you know, if you're not, don't do rubbish content because that'll actually hurt your brand more, and I do believe that as well. And they did a survey last year, the CMI, and they found that 20% of global marketers were committed to content marketing. So they were measuring the return on investment for that content. They were looking at how they could tell a different story. They were building loyalty. But what does that mean? That means that 80% were only half committed or not committed at all. And that's what Joe Polizzi calls content purgatory as well. So write your targeted content, look at what the ROI is, and deliver it through community and social media. So I just want to touch on a couple of tips for curating, because I do recognise that most small to medium businesses don't have time to write a lot of content. So the first thing is looking at who's expert in your field. So in every sector, there are experts that are writing stuff. Go look at them, follow them on social media, pull together a list of those people who are writing well around the topics that you feel would resonate with your audience. The second thing is to find those heroes, those other brands like My Kids Time that are doing great things on social media with content. So find the hero brands. Now, they may be in your sector or they may be not. And the thing to remember on social media is that people, as Antonio said, are there to be social. They're not there to be sold to. So you can share other content that, you know, people are people at the end of the day. They like sports, they like to eat, they like to feed themselves, they like to buy stuff for their kids. So there are lots of topic areas that you can share. Then there are some nifty tools out there now. There's the new one that we've been trying called Chronicle. So this is like a content research and collaboration tool. So for example, if you were writing an article about artificial intelligence, you can go on Chronicle, you can search a whole load of sources, you can add your own sources, pull together the material about AI, and then you might have that run past your tech team and the marketing team. Everybody gets input, and then you produce the final piece of content to share then. And don't forget about hashtags on social media. Again, go and look at keywords that people around your topic areas and go and see what people are doing. So here's some examples of different visuals that we've used for results. So this is you know, your typical lead magnet in return for an email. Here's our nice little ebook. What we've found as well is that putting the title onto visual makes a big difference to tell at a glance what this is about, and therefore can I turn that browser into a reader. And we actually managed to increase our Pinterest traffic again by this strategy of putting the title on so that it's really clear, and putting our brand logo on so it's clear that it's coming from a company rather than a blogger or a person. So just a few things that have worked in terms of building a community. So first of all is the truth. I think for whatever business you're in, tell the truth. People, that resonates with people. It's the story, it's the truth, okay? So parenting's a bit tough. So we like to have fun with the truth. Nobody likes to give their toddler glitter and then clean up afterwards. So that's just, you know, a bit of fun. But it's telling the truth about parenting. Having a consistent tone is really important. So now your brand is more than just a logo. It's actually the language you use. It could even be, do I use emoticons? How formal? Do we swear? You know, are we casual? All of these things matter in the language, and being consistent about that. So targeted content, I've already mentioned that. So it's writing content that's aimed at your target segments. Timing. So they say that digital marketing now is about delivering the right content to the right people on the right devices, and it's also about the right time. So it's looking at when those people are online, when they're engaging with your website and social media channels, and pushing that out at the right time. Transparency. So here's a couple of examples where we worked with brands and we made it very obvious we're doing this in association with the brand so that it's very transparent. But another example of that is if something has gone wrong and people are complaining on social media, it's important for you to be transparent and honest and put your hands up and continue to build that brand trust. And finally, just know this about social media. The easiest thing you can get people to do is like or heart, as it is on Twitter now, a piece of content. The next thing is that they share that. So there's a kind of a spectrum you're moving them along. The next thing is that they comment and go, oh, this is great, thanks for sharing that. The next thing, and this is probably your biggest signal of brand trust, is that they tagged another person on your content. So they put themselves out there that other person should read your content. And then the final level of trust is you get them to take action and click or do something. So just to kind of conclude, Be authentic, be honest. You have to be different. You have to tell your story compared to your competitors. Be very clear about the objectives for your content and social media, and be completely consistent with your tone. And I'll just leave you with, I think, which is the truth, that the quickest way to get your kids' attention is to sit down and relax. So thank you very much for listening. Here's where you can find me online. I'd love for you to connect me, and if you want to talk to me anytime offline, please feel free to do so.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much for the story. Does anybody have a question in the room? Yes, please. I'll walk to you with the microphone.
Hi, Jill. Hi. So, thanks for the tweet I saw. A lot of the people in this room are publishers who work with small businesses, sort of in the same way that you do. However, they're working across categories, across verticals, so they don't specialize in a particular area. Very often, the content marketing efforts that have been made on the behalf of these small businesses by people like these publishers have been very superficial. It's really perfunctory, quite cynical, and very thin. And you made a comment about, do it well or don't do it at all. The question that many people probably have is, how do you scale this? How do you do this realistically in a way that's authentic and meaningful, but at scale? Or is that even possible?
Well, I think the best way of doing that is to be really organized and have a content plan. So you said the company needs to sit down and say, what are our key messages? What are the stories we're going to tell? What formats are we going to use? What channels are we going to push that out at? And that's all planned ahead of time, because that's how you can scale things. And the repurposing that I mentioned, okay, so if you've one piece of content, it's actually not difficult to turn that into several pieces of content. And if you have your processes in place for your content production and your social media sharing, that can scale more easily than you would think. I mean, I made it look very easy. It's taken us about 5 years to get to the point now where we can produce a piece of content, repurpose it, and push it out quickly. And we're just a small company. We have 6 people in there.
Does anybody else have a question? Well, the thing is, what you was saying is like the question that people had 10 years ago: how to make a mobile website for a SME, and now we can make websites within 20 seconds, right? No, it isn't, not yet. The thing is, if you get a copywriter and the publisher and the solution providers gather all this information, and this copywriter only needs to write, doesn't need to do the research, has all the SEO words, maybe in 1 year or 2 years you get a text, and probably relevance will be in the location, because yeah.
So interesting anecdote, the stationery company Hallmark, which has a lot of franchisees and independent small businesses as well as owned stores, takes control of the listing, the SEO side of the business. They claim all the listings and they control the location data, because they feel they can do that at scale centrally, and that it's important for them to do that. They educate their local businesses about social media, but they don't try and do any content for them on social media. They talk about best practices, but they leave it to the local business because they feel they can't do it authentically, they can't speak in the local voice, and so they try and tell them how to do it, but they won't do it on their behalf. And
I think that's what you need to do if you're working with small businesses and delivering different services, is helping educate them on how to best to tell their story. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, you're all about selling ads and putting them on digital. All of that needs a story. If it's a video, it needs a story around it. If it's a piece of content, a blog post, if it's an ad, it needs a story. So these are skills that you can help educate your customers in as well.
Okay, last question.
Yeah, it's not a question. I just want to kind of share some of our experience, because we're actually now working with YP provider that has to do social media for over 12,000 accounts. I don't think that there's a lot. This is a really, really a huge challenge. And what we're trying to do with them is around moving them from what we call a hero model where the social media manager has to do all of the things, for one customer, into more of what we call an assembly line, where some people are creating the content, some people are now kind of personalizing them for the SMB. And the other thing is we're trying to give them tools that will elicit the SMBs to contribute content, because a lot of SMBs can just capture moments of where they have happy customers, give them a tool where they can quickly upload, not even write the post themselves, but upload it to a repository where the social media can take it and make add the tagline and make a post. So it's an interesting project, and I think we answered the question of how to scale it.
So maybe in a couple of years it will be scalable, maybe not that unique, but it can be sold at large scale. So we're now getting ready for lunch. Can I get a big hand for Jill?